The notion that the United States is still a dependable ally has been challenged following President Trump's first international trip. He's just finished a three-day visit to Europe. After his departure, the continent's longest-serving leader, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, heralded a new world order by declaring that Europe has to go it alone because old partners are no longer reliable. Whether the White House can be trusted under Donald Trump is a question for Australia too, even though politicians constantly reassure us that the alliance with the US is bigger than any one personality. The Turnbull government today announced it'd send another 30 troops to Afghanistan at America's request, coinciding with a visit by powerful Republican Senator and former presidential candidate John McCain. I'll have an in-depth interview with the Senator in a moment, but first, here's political correspondent Andrew Probyn on what a new world order might look like.
Beneath the continuing crises affecting Donald Trump's administration is a bigger concern. It goes to American power.
I think we hit a home run no matter where we are.
Far from a home run, Donald Trump's first overseas trip as US president invited more questions than it answered.
The times in which we could completely rely on others are more or less over. That's what I've experienced the last few days.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel was reflecting the new reality in Western politics. As Donald Trump's authority is undermined at home and his reliability queried abroad, the axis of Western leadership is shifting to Europe.
We Europeans have to take our own destiny into our own hands.
But as much as European leaders may revile Donald Trump, Europe and our region needs a strong United States.
Well, we made a lot of good friends this week, I'll tell you.
Whether this is to counter an increasingly assertive China in the South China Sea, to provide leadership in the standoff with a nuclear-intentioned North Korea, or step up the fight in Afghanistan, which has long been the breeding ground for various strands of Islamic extremism.
I can advise today that the Australian Government has agreed to increase the Australian Defence Force commitment to Afghanistan by 30 personnel, from around 270 personnel to 300 personnel.
Australia's increased commitment will be within the ADF's existing train, advise and assist mandate, and on the condition that NATO countries also increase their commitment. The Turnbull government has its differences with the Trump administration, but on Afghanistan they're united that President Barack Obama's drawdown of troops was too quick. But this shared view of a conflict masks a security relationship that lately has been under some strain. I understand that ever since the Edward Snowden leaks in 2013, Australia has applied more caution to its intelligence sharing with the United States, effectively keeping some secrets from official channels. The identification of the Manchester bomber in US media using intelligence passed to the Americans by the British shows Australia is not alone in having concerns.
I will make clear to President Trump that intelligence that is shared between our law enforcement agencies must remain secure.
Julie Bishop, does Australia trust the US with its intelligence?
We have one of the closest intelligence sharing relationships that one could imagine between two countries with the United States, and we have most certainly benefited enormously from this intelligence sharing relationship that will continue.
British PM Theresa May has got some issues with the Trump administration in the wake of the Manchester bombing. Should we have concerns?
No, I understand that those issues have been resolved and that the Trump administration was as concerned as the British government about apparent leaks in relation to the Manchester bombings. But the overall intelligence relationship with the United States is absolutely indispensable. It is vital for Australia's national security and the security and safety of our citizens.
On Afghanistan, why are we throwing more at a fight that we seem to be withdrawing from?
Back in 2014, when Islamic State declared a caliphate over parts of Iraq and Syria, it also began to reach out to establish terrorist networks, franchises, if you like, in other parts of the world. And that included in African countries, in southern Philippines and in Afghanistan.
The Taliban has metastasised, is that what you're saying?
What has happened is some hardline elements in the Taliban have aligned themselves with the objectives of ISIS. Now, this franchise of ISIS in Afghanistan, Islamic State in Khorasan province, has claimed responsibility for some terrible attacks in Afghanistan in recent years, And I was certainly briefed about this in 2015, and it has come to pass.
Aren't there priorities closer to home that perhaps we should turn our attention to in Asia, in the Philippines and Indonesia?
They are connected. We are focusing our efforts in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in southern Philippines, working closely with those governments to ensure that we can stamp out terrorism, that we can prevent attacks occurring. But we have to go back to the source, which is Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. That's why we're taking part in the coalition there. Islamic State is now reaching into other countries, including Afghanistan, so we'll continue to devote our resources and our efforts to stopping terrorism wherever we see it.
As the Western world waits for a chaotic White House to re-establish consistency and authority, there's an obvious winner. And his name is Vladimir Putin.
Powerful Republican Senator John McCain is in Australia as a guest of the